Hi, welcome back to Space Thoughts. It's a rainy day here in New Hampshire, and we're actually on our first full day of a stay-at-home order from the governor of New Hampshire. New Hampshire has become one of the states that has been issued an order by the governorship. It is what it is, and we'll just have to get through it. It's not a major inconvenience, but actually one of the casualties is going to be my hair. I'm definitely going to need a haircut after this 5-week order is lifted. I wanted to talk about OneWeb. They filed for bankruptcy this past week, and it was kind of it's been a big news item for the past couple days. OneWeb is basically a company that's developing a small satellite mega constellation along the same idea of SpaceX's Starlink, although not as big as Starlink. And they just this past week they had a successful launch of more satellites in orbit. I think they have 74 in orbit right now. A lot of hyperbole has been going on about this bankruptcy. What it caused, what the future of OneWeb is, and how this is going to affect their business. And unfortunately, if you don't understand bankruptcy law, and I dabble in it just a little bit here, is that basically, there are different types of bankruptcy. And the minute somebody says bankruptcy, they generalize, oh my God, they're going out of business, and they're going to be liquidated, and that's the end of the business. Well, that isn't what happens. Bankruptcy laws have different levels and different tiers of bankruptcy, and different things happen. In OneWeb's case, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which is basically reorganization. In other words, they're petitioning the court saying, look, we have creditors, we're having money flow problems, but we don't want to go out of business, we don't want to liquidate, we want to stay in business, but we need bankruptcy protection from our creditors in order to reorganize our business and continue on with business. And sometimes that's a strategic decision, especially in their case. They need funding to keep things going, even though they did this launch this past week of its satellites. Fundamentally, it's they're going to the court saying we need this. Now, OneWeb has a lot of creditors. Airbus Defense owns a stake in OneWeb, so basically they are what we call a bankruptcy creditor, and they'll file a claim as well. SoftBank, which is a Japanese bank, is a significant investor in OneWeb, but there are other potential creditors out there as well. For example, Virgin Orbit signed a contract several years ago to launch OneWeb satellites into orbit on their Launcher 1. However, the OneWeb allegedly breached the contract, and Virgin Orbit sued them in federal court for quite a substantial sum of money. And in fact, next April, I think it's the 13th, there's supposed to be a bench trial on the matter in federal court. Now, when I mean bench trial, meaning there's no jury impaneled to hear it. It's just the judge, the attorneys, and the record to basically determine the outcome of the case. Now, whether or not that happens, given what's going on with COVID-19, that date could be flexible and pushed out further. But right now, it looks like it's going to court. Now, what happens if whoever the judge decides for, whether it's OneWeb or Virgin Orbit, chances are there'll be an appeal, which will stretch that out, a few months, probably even to the end of the year. But the idea is if Virgin wins and OneWeb doesn't appeal, Virgin now has a judgment, and they become a creditor, and they can file a petition with the bankruptcy court as a judgment creditor. Now, basically sometimes Chapter 11 sometimes creditors actually will have enough sway with a company to kind of push a company to go to Chapter 11 versus a complete liquidation of the company. That way, creditors can kind of, in a sense, I hate to say use the word force, but it's the only word I can think of, force a company to go into reorganization, so they have a say saying, look, we want you to reorganize because we want to get paid. So again, Virgin Orbit isn't a creditor right now because they don't have a judgment, but if they do get a judgment and it's not appealed by OneWeb, they are going to be able to actually file a claim as a creditor. There's been a lot of talk about OneWeb and why it went bankrupt. I don't know the specifics, but there's a lot of hyperbole going on. I'm seeing in daily media reports about well, and just generalizing it as a bankruptcy and thinking it's the end of the end of the company, and that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes in Chapter 11, a company will do it as a strategic move to hold off creditors while they try to secure more funding, or they may try to use a bankruptcy filing as leverage with a creditor to actually get additional funding or additional to basically negotiate better terms with a creditor. So right now that's been filed, they'll get what we call a stay, an automatic stay that basically says to all the creditors, you can't do any collection activities until the bankruptcy proceedings are over. And these things can be stretched out for a long time. And that basically gives OneWeb time to reorganize its business, secure new funding, and keep things going. So what that means is all those satellites they orbited will still be operational and still functional. I know OneWeb's had layoffs and such, but the company hasn't completely dissolved. So OneWeb is still an active company. One article that caught my eye today about the reason for why OneWeb it claims that it had to go into Chapter 11, and this is in Florida today, is citing coronavirus as a reason for filing bankruptcy. Now, I'm not going to go too heavily into this. But basically, it was they're saying that they have because of the coronavirus, they had to lay off a bunch of employees and file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The coronavirus is definitely a big concern right now, and it is having some effects on the space industry. But I'm kind of I call shenanigans a little bit on the idea that the coronavirus is the sole reason for OneWeb filing Chapter 11. It may be a contributing factor, but it's probably not the primary factor. I think because bankruptcy, you don't make a decision overnight that, we got to file for bankruptcy, because you got to justify to the bankruptcy judge why you need to file for bankruptcy. So usually it's filing for bankruptcy the decision to file for bankruptcy is a drawn out process. And multiple decisions are made and to the point where, we can't keep on going on any longer. We have to file for bankruptcy to get some protection. So that's just a brief video on OneWeb. I'm going to be following this in my briefing letter, the Pressy, in the litigation section, probably starting with the second quarter 2020 issue, which will come out at the end of June. But I just wanted to touch base on this a little bit, and this will be in the media a lot. Space News will definitely be covering it, as will other media outlets. But I just want you to understand that this idea that OneWeb has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy doesn't mean the company's gone out of business. Sometimes, like I said, filing for bankruptcy is a strategic move versus to basically protect itself while it gets its act together, or to secure more funding. So, anyways. Like I said, it's a rainy day here, and we're at a stay-at-home order here in New Hampshire, and I'm sure a lot of you have similar restrictions with COVID-19 out there, causing problems and delaying things. But I just want to leave you with the thought that we're going to all get through this. COVID-19 isn't the end of new space. It's not the end of space exploration. It's still going. It's just still going. Maybe at a little bit slower pace because of resources devoted to combating COVID-19 outbreaks. But we're all going to get through this, and we just got to keep a stiff upper lip, as my British friends would say, and just wait it out. Patience and time. All right, like I said, I'm going to try and do one of these videos every week, and we'll probably try and do another live session probably in the next week or two, which I will announce via my Twitter account and such. So anyways, have a great day and have a great week, and we will talk to you next time.